Tyler, the topic I plan on talking about with you is criticism. How well do you take criticism?
I'd say I take it good, but sometimes bad. So a mix. I'm in the middle.
Oh, okay. Has there ever been a time you were combative when you were given criticism?
Yes, definitely. And it would be mostly times that people who I care about criticize me rather than people who I just don't know.
Okay. How do you take criticism when someone you don't know has something to say about you?
I'd say when people I don't know criticize me, I either brush it off or I really reflect on it because those people I don't know, that's their first opinion of me, or it's their solid opinion of me. So they see myself through a different lens that I can't see myself through. Taking advice from people on the outside, sometimes it will help you as long as it's not anything negative. For example, I was eating fast food and junk and eventually I started gaining more weight and they noticed, and I don't really know them that well, and they're like, "Hey man, you're gaining weight. You look fat, whatever." Like, okay, maybe they're being rude, but also maybe I'm fat. I just reflect on that.
So, has there ever been a time you gave criticism that was taken the wrong way to the person receiving it?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I would say that's usually whenever I try to talk to my girlfriend. I'll just sit her down and like say something I noticed that's been off about her. And sometimes she'll just take it the wrong way because obviously like the things I say matter a lot more to her than it would to anybody else because she loves me. So, I just have to be really careful about what I say. And maybe sometimes I'm not the best at communicating my thoughts. So I just need to find a better way to communicate them you know, without making it seem rude or anything.
What is the psychology behind why people get offended when they get criticized?
I think the psychology behind it would be just hearing something negative about yourself. A lot of people in the world nowadays, they hear criticism and they think it's a bad thing, and then they retaliate or they say something criticizing the other person back. It could be good sometimes, and sometimes it could be bad. It depends how rude they're being. I think the reason they take it so bad is because they put that category in a negative area and no good comes out of it. That's in their mind, no good. But some good can come out of it. And if you really try to reflect on it, then you will find that it will be beneficial.
What are the various emotions that people display when they are
I
criticized?
would say anger and maybe some sadness.
Oh, okay. Have you ever seen crying as an emotion?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen someone that was okay about being criticized?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people be okay about criticism, especially Um, well, Jesus, for example, he would be criticized all the time for anything he does, and I know he wouldn't take advice from others because obviously he was perfect. And he is the Son of God, so he doesn't need advice from others. But instead of coming back at them in a negative way, he would take it in a good way, and he would explain to them calmly why they may be wrong or why he's doing what he's doing, even though he doesn't really have to explain. He's perfect, so he would take it good.
There's constructive criticism and then there's regular criticism. Does that mean that regular criticism is viewed as
Criticism could be somebody saying something rude to you, but something that could also be true, or it could be something completely false that they just made up. I really don't know. When you say regular criticism, is that like in between good and bad?
yeah, because I guess if you break down the various categories of criticism, there's constructive criticism, which is them telling you something bad, but they're trying to build you up.
Yeah,
And then there's regular criticism. So I'm trying to see what regular criticism be
I
destructive.
believe because if you hung around somebody who was only negative to you and in the way that they would criticize you falsely and just accuse you of random things or say you look ugly today and other people, maybe you're an attractive dude and he's just trying to build you down and break you down and it might even be wrong. So I think it could be very detrimental to your mental health if you just keep hearing negative things about yourself.
Do you know what having thick skin means?
I think the term having thick skin means, you feel tough and like nothing could touch you. But really, I know that that's not true about anybody. And deep down, really, like, maybe they brush it off, but the reason they can brush it off so easily is because they distract themselves and do other things. But when they're really alone at night, they reflect through their day, and it comes back to them. Maybe it's years later, but eventually it's going to catch up to you if you keep pushing it away. So really, nobody has thick skin. They're just good at avoiding it.
Are those individuals who put the facade that they have thick skin, are those individuals, is there a stereotype or a fact that those people don't easily get offended?
Yeah, I think that people believe they don't easily get offended because they don't react in front of everybody else most of the time. So they would assume, they don't really deal with it when they're alone either, probably because they don't react when in front of everybody else. I feel like it's a stereotype, definitely. It's not true because people will say that, but eventually, if you keep pushing off the things that people say to you, and you don't deal with it, and you like just right when they say it, you think in your head like you either say a quick prayer or you just think to yourself like, "That's not true. I know that I'm good how I am." Not like in the way that, oh, I need no improvement, but just like God loves me as I am, and I'm not this negative thing they just said to me. Uh, that's not me. So if you deal with it there and then, it's gone. You don't have to worry about it again, and you forgive them. But if you keep it in your head and you don't say anything about it, you don't react, you just take it, keep taking those things over the years, it's eventually going to catch up to you. And maybe it's like years later, maybe it's the next day, you're going to feel it. Eventually, nobody has no emotion.
Do you need to be self aware on how to tell someone something in a unique way that's not going to get them upset?
Yeah, I would definitely think you need to watch what you're saying because sometimes people could take it the wrong way. Now, you might mean something else and somebody takes it offensive and they might, get angry and whatnot. I really think, yeah, like they shouldn't have got angry, but then you got to think from their perspective how they heard it. Maybe you're supposed to, you're there to like uplift them, and then you end up saying something that sounds off to them, and then all of a sudden they think you're criticizing them and you're saying the, negative stuff about them, so they just take it to offense.
So, would you agree that self awareness is a necessity prior to you giving someone criticism? Because it's okay to say that statement, but you would have to be, I guess, unique in a way to say it in a certain way for them to come to an understanding on where you're coming from.
Yeah, I think having self-awareness is definitely a key to, um, constructive criticism because it's good. So, just making sure you, maybe you also struggle with the same thing you're trying to give advice to them about. And if you are self-aware, you would know that. So you would be like, oh, I struggle with the same thing. So I could give examples or I could give better advice than somebody who has no idea what's going on. And they're not even trying to make an effort to eliminate the struggles that I have because they don't know how it is. So I would be better versed in that area because I actually struggle with it and I'm actually making actions towards, whatever you're trying to constructively criticize somebody about.
Can criticism ever be objective or is it always influenced by personal bias?
I think that there's a good way to know if you're correctly, constructively criticizing somebody, which really should be like you sit down with them and you review over something they did maybe, um, just to benefit them and you in the process would be to reference the Bible. So that's really the only know how way to know you're doing something correctly, not that it's based on opinions. Because yeah, I mean, a lot of people do criticize based on opinions. So they're like, "Oh, I don't like what you're wearing or whatnot." But that's their opinion. That's not in the Bible. It's not really about that. I think the deeper stuff, really, the Bible covers that. But then the shallow stuff, like how people look or what they're eating, and it could be opinion based. So like, I think it could be both, to be honest.
I feel like strangers are the types to criticize you based on objectiveness, but then people you know is probably gonna be based on personal experiences. Because even if they criticize you, they're gonna bring something else based on your past, and it could get messy. So I feel like with strangers it's subjective. With people you know, family, friends, even neighbors, is gonna be based on personal experiences. How does self-esteem affect how someone handles criticism?
You know, if you have a good, strong belief that you are this person that you believe you are, and you have other people telling you you're that person, and then all of a sudden somebody comes over and tells you you're not, you know, it's not really going to affect you because in your head, you're not that, whatever they called you. Like, for example, if, you know, somebody walked up and said, I don't like your blue hair. I don't have blue hair, you know, I don't care, whatever. I'll just go on about my day. It doesn't really affect me. But for some people, low self-esteem could mean they don't really know, like, in a sense, because obviously you would know if you had blue hair, but this is an example, like, you know, maybe their personality traits, they don't really know themselves that well. They don't know if somebody were to come up to them and tell them they have a bad personality trait. They don't really know themselves well enough to be like, oh, I don't have that personality trait, whatever, I'll move on about my day. And then they think about it too much. They're like, maybe, maybe I do have that bad personality trait, and maybe I should fix it. And then they start thinking negative things about themselves. Yeah, I think self-esteem has a big role.
Is it possible to blow up if you're being given criticism and that statement has nothing to do with you? Because some people would just brush it off, but then some people, even if that criticism has nothing to do with what that person was saying, it's possible to blow up. So, what's the psychology of that, if you were to describe it?
Usually people who don't have whatever they're being criticized about, um, that react to it, they just like, I feel personally that they just like to argue because they'll hear something that doesn't affect them, that has nothing to do with them, and they involve themselves. And maybe it's even directed towards them, but you could just brush it off and move on. You don't have to respond in a negative way, you know. Like I said, if somebody said I had blue hair and that they hated it, I'd be like, okay, whatever, I'll move on. But other people, maybe they'll get offended and say something back. Or maybe somebody just says in an audience, on stage, that they don't like people with blue hair. They didn't say it to you, but then if I were to go out and react and say something else to defend people with blue hair, then it's like, you know, it's pointless. I could have just kept myself out of it. I didn't have to involve myself. So I think just definitely having some self-control in that sense, you can avoid a lot of conflict and negative stuff.
How do you think some people take criticism better than others?
I think that they take it better because they have, you know, a better sense of self-worth and self-esteem and a stronger relationship with God.
So, those who take it a whole lot better know themselves.
Yeah.
And hmm, that's one factor I described. You mind giving two more factors as to why they take it better?
Well, I said they have a good sense of self-worth, but they also would have a stronger relationship with God. So as a Christian, you wouldn't want to react out in public or even in private in a bad way and just, you know, just lose your cool and, you know, yell at them and say something back. So I think that people generally who don't react as much, they have a better self-esteem and also better relationship with God. And the third thing I would say, I can't really think of one.
Do different cultures handle criticism differently?
I think that, yeah, a lot of cultures handle criticism differently. Like there's a lot of stereotypes too, so you can't really say that this culture will handle it this way and then see some random person from that culture react exactly how you said. Like maybe the majority of them will because that's how they were raised, but then you can't just walk up to that one person in that culture and expect them to react that way because that's, you know, that's assumptions and you don't know that person. But I think generally it would be true, like, yeah, maybe most of these people in this culture react to criticism this way, but you don't really, there's no need to bring it up, you know? I prefer to get to know the person and, um, that's when you can really know about that person and speak on it. You don't just assume things.
How would you say Americans handle criticism versus how different groups of people outside the U.S. handle it?
I think if we're going to talk about stereotypical, I think it would be about the same because generally, like, if we go as far as going into little cultures, it's a lot smaller than the whole world, you know. That's a big topic. There's like many billions of people. So in the end, we're all human, and I believe we all, as a whole world, take criticism in a negative way, and we all respond negatively most of the time. So I don't really think it has anything to do with just Americans or, other countries. I think that just humans take it in a negative way.
How do you think celebrities, athletes, and those we see in the media handle criticism in their day-to-day life?
Well, I know that, like I said, a lot of them will handle it negatively as a stereotype, yes, but there's plenty of people who handle it great and they pray and they have a good relationship with God, or even the ones who don't, they they can take it well. I would say it's a lot more difficult though to take it well if you don't have a good relationship with God, but maybe they just have a strong sense of self-worth and they know who they are. And or sometimes it's ego, you know. There's a lot of factors that play into it, but maybe they think they're better than everybody, so if they hear something negative and they just don't think about it, and they're like, whatever. But then maybe they're humble enough to, fear God and also know who they are and that they're a son of God, and they don't will brush it off and they're like, you know what, whatever they said does not affect me. So generally, I would say most of them handle it negatively, but there's a good portion of them who handle it well.
I like that because I guess from what I'm gathering from what you're saying, um, people we handle criticism negatively. That's based on just human nature. But if you fear God, you'll handle it a whole lot better compared to the majority. If you put God first, you'll handle what someone would say about you a whole lot better
Exactly.
because you feel like you're a child of God.
Yeah.
I like that. Can social media make people more critical or more vocal?
Definitely. They feel like they're safer in their home and, whatever they say, they don't have to say it to someone's face. And it's a lot harder to just say something negative to someone to their face because that's why gossip goes around. That's why people make things on social media or posts or whatever. Or some people will be more bold about it. But in general, I just think, yeah, social media lets people out their shell and gives them a false sense of like, I could say whatever I want here and I don't have any consequences.
Like for instance, I know you're not a big basketball guy, but Jason Tatum, who's the franchise player for the Boston Celtics, he came down with an injury a couple of days ago, and I went on his IG to see what people were going to say about him, because usually when stuff like this happens, you want to see how people are gonna react to such an injury. So I went to his latest Instagram post and I seen people just, you'll bounce back from this injury, Jason Tatum. And you had some people just like basically saying how he deserved it and how he was just never a good player. So you see people's, you know, true colors. So I would agree in the sense that it makes people more vocal and it gives them a platform to criticize more.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I also realized whenever you said that it maybe makes people who are usually nervous to say something kind about somebody, it lets them out of their shell more too. So, maybe they would be too shy to say it to him in person because, he's famous and all, and they're like, oh, yeah, I wouldn't go up to him and say something to him. But on a post, to be supportive, they're like, you know what? It's not that big of a deal. He won't even see me in person.
Mhm.
to my face. So, it's just nice to leave a nice compliment.
Which is crazy because some of the times they actually do reply.
Yeah,
Like, but it's like out of the blue. It's like random.
yeah,
Yeah, like another basketball guy. I know you're not a big
yeah.
basketball
It's
guy.
fine. It's fine.
This guy, Kevin Durant, he
Oh,
has
I
a
know. I know.
tendency
Yeah.
of like replying out of the blue.
Yeah.
And it's just because you think they're not looking, they're actually looking, and they'll
Yeah.
filter out when they'll respond.
Yeah.
So nowadays it's easy to get canceled for anything, even if what you're saying has some truth to it. Would you say that cancel culture prevented the way people give and receive criticism?
I feel like cancel culture is criticism.
Okay.
So they criticize you for what you're saying, whether it's true or not, and then they just all collectively, as a whole, decide to just stop watching whatever you post or say negative things.
Was there ever a time in your personal life where you almost felt the effects of cancel culture?
I would say yes, but it was deserved because I was in high school and I was in the wrong path.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you mind describing the incident?
Um, I feel like I would just talk a lot during school. I was like a class clown, so
Okay.
I was pretty loud, and other people are trying to work, and I wasn't very aware of that, and I really didn't care either. And the reason for that was because I just had a void I needed to fill. Like I wanted attention or somebody to think I'm funny. So I would just make jokes in class when they were uncalled for. And then, I would get sent to the office or whatnot. And eventually I learned, like, hey, if I just focus on my work and let people do what they need to do, like, I could go get my attention from God. But I wasn't very close to Him back when I was doing that.
Can someone go too far when receiving criticism?
How, what do you mean by, like, the person receiving the criticism or the person saying it?
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant to say this first. Can someone go too far when giving criticism?
Yeah, I definitely feel like somebody giving criticism could go a bit too far. Maybe using bad examples, like if somebody's mom died and they're like, um, they bring up their dead mom in their example of criticizing them. Maybe it's supposed to be constructive, but then eventually that goes too far. And that's like, man, it's a sensitive topic. You don't talk about that stuff. You got to feel also, maybe somebody's okay with it, but you got to know the person to be saying that stuff. So I feel like unintentionally and intentionally it can go too far. Yeah.
What about can someone go too far when receiving criticism?
Yeah, I feel like receiving it, maybe you can overthink, like I said, if you don't have a strong self-worth, you can start overthinking whatever they gave you as criticism, whether it's constructive or not, and you take it to heart and overthink about it, and maybe you base your whole personality on what a collective group of people say about you and tell you they need to change or they want to see you change it. Like, I guess it's like peer pressure almost. Somebody will go dye their hair a color and then you don't do it and everybody makes fun of you and then you feel like you have to go do it.
Describe a time someone took criticism and converted it into a personal or professional growth.
There was a lot of times, like, I just want to make sure I know what you asked. So can you
Okay.
repeat it?
Basically, a time when someone took criticism and ever since that person received it, they've been the best version of themselves ever since.
Oh, okay. So somebody who took criticism and became better for it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm pretty sure people do that every day, but what I would say is I like to listen to David Goggins a lot. And he used to be fat. He was very overweight.
Okay.
And he would get bullied in school for it. So whenever he would get bullied in school, he would just take it and be sad and whatnot. And he didn't like do anything with that. But eventually he realized to one point, like, do I want to be overweight and not doing anything with my life at this age after high school? So he took that criticism and he went to the Navy SEALs office and he asked, like, what weight do I have to be to join? and they told him to wait. So he took that, and in 6 months, I'm pretty sure he dropped over, I don't remember the number, so I don't want to misquote it, but it was a lot of weight. And it's really influential to all the people who are out there taking criticism, and they're taking it in a bad way and they get depressed. But instead, you could take it and either listen to it, if it's constructive at least, or if it's true, or you can, pray about it and see if it's really an issue. But otherwise, I think that's a good example.
And receiving or giving criticism lead to mental stress?
Yeah, it can. If you overthink it, or if you keep giving it to other people, you may stress yourself out by comparing yourself to others, and you're trying to find these little things that are wrong with them, so you point them out to them instead of looking at yourself and focusing on yourself and getting better. And also receiving a lot, it could be very bad for your mental health if you just, if you don't deal with it the right way and pray about it how you should.
So criticism is never meant to, is not meant for you to overthink the statements that you're being told.
Yeah, I think so.
Because the minute you overthink it, that's going to lead to like stress and you possibly doing actions that you're going to regret.
Yeah, I would say instead of thinking about it by yourself, you can either bring it up to a trusted person or to God. You bring it to Him.
Okay.
I would say always do that.
What was the harshest criticism you've received from your parents?
I would say it was probably just from my mom. She would criticize me a lot about, back when I wanted to start a business, and I'm still working on it right now. She was not very supportive of it, and she would criticize me for even trying. And I understand like needing a job for money, yeah. But at the time I was only 15, so I literally had no bills, no nothing to pay for. I had no reason to be working a full-time job. But instead of supporting me, she would criticize any idea I had about a business. And it really just like, it sucked because I didn't know how to deal with it. So I would just believe it's true, and I would like, maybe it won't work out like she said it won't. And I've had so many failed businesses in the past, and I think that might be a key factor in why, because I really believed her and I took it to heart.
Is criticism still viewed as criticism when parents say it, or is it called another term?
I think it's still criticism,
Okay.
no matter who it comes from.
How does someone know when to ignore a criticism or whether to include it?
I would say you need to pray about it. So if you hear something that somebody says about you, maybe it's something completely stupid that it's not true. You just brush it off. But if it's something that you might think is true and it's really stuck on your head and you start overthinking it, and if you catch yourself there, you just pray about it and you say, hey, God, either take this away from me out of my head and let me know it's not true, or you can let me know it is, and let me ask him to show you how to improve it and fix it.
Can oversensitivity ruin a friendship when criticism is said?
I believe it can, but then also over criticism can also ruin it. So maybe somebody said, like something small, just makes a joke as you guys are making jokes back and forth. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, that person just wants to be offended, and they're like, hey, I don't know why you said that. That's too far. And you're like, okay, well, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to go that far. But, eventually, if you guys keep joking around as friends like you always would, and every time you hang out, that person randomly gets offended, you're going to stop wanting to hang out with them. Whether you're in the wrong or not, it's probably just going to be annoying, even though, you're just trying to be friends with them and make jokes.
Are there any concluding statements you would like to tell our audience before we close this topic of criticism?
In conclusion, I would just say overall, taking criticism, you definitely need to pray about it and have a strong sense of self-worth. And really, that's the main key takeaways, I would say.
Thank you for this topic.
Thank you.